So if you decide that you want to do a partnership with someone for real estate investing, definitely put together an operating agreement and put in the operating agreement not what's happening now, but what's going to happen in the future too. So you may say, oh, Ashley is going to be the property manager, Joe is going to do maintenance, they split everything 50-50. Okay, well, what happens when one day you want to outsource the property management, or maybe you're just going to outsource the maintenance and not the leasing and the bookkeeping? So it's very important to lay it out and see what the future could look like. But also, if one of the partners were to pass away, what happens then?
Guys, welcome to Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today we have on the show with us an Instagram friend and now an in-person friend, Ashley Kehr. Ashley, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? I know it's so funny how many people you meet on social media now, and then it's even more exciting when you get to meet in
right.
It's
like you follow each other for years or months or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I finally get to meet the person.
Yeah.
Which, as a side note, and we'll probably go into this a little bit, but we randomly were across the street from each other in Destin at the same weekend at two different mastermind events. So pretty wild. And then we figured out we were right across the street from each other and got to hang out and mastermind for a little bit.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. Like, what a coincidence.
Yeah, that is wild. So a little bit about Ashley before we dive in today. She's the co-host of the Real Estate Rookie Podcast, which is a phenomenal podcast, especially for those getting into real estate. And just a few years removed from being a beginner herself, she's now helping newbies figure out actionable steps to get their first deal. She purchased her first rental property in 2014 and has since grown to buy and hold portfolio to over 35 units. And she's done quite a bit of that with the BRRRR method. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more of your story, Ashley, and really dive into, how your story and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Yeah. So I started out actually as an accountant. I graduated college with a dual degree in finance and accounting. Started working at a CPA firm, lasted from September to February. I hated it and I quit in the middle of tax season. So then I was just I told my husband had told me I could quit if I got pregnant and I could be a stay-at-home mom. So I said, okay. And that's what I was going to do. Then my best friend growing up, she said that her dad needed some help staying organized and to work on some projects. So I agreed to work with him part-time. And my first project with him was to manage a 40-unit apartment complex. I had no knowledge, no experience, didn't know anything about property management or tenants or anything like that, rent collection. All I knew is that I could do the bookkeeping, at least, and the accounting side of that business. So I dove in, learned everything I needed to know, and eventually I managed about 120 units for him, some residential and some commercial units. So I worked for him for 2 years before I actually purchased my first deal. I bought a duplex actually with his son. His son was the money and I was the experience, and we put together a partnership. And from there, I just started growing and went out onto my own to purchase some properties. And then I purchased some with another partner too. And then That's awesome. Guess part of this story too is, how I got on the Rookie podcast and everything like that, because my life has really changed in the last couple of years a lot, but I'm no longer doing property management. I gave that up last February. I outsourced it to a property management company. I gave them my properties and the ones that I was managing for another investor. But 2 years ago, so I think in June 2019, I started an Instagram account with just pictures of my real estate journey, and we had also gotten debt free and started sharing all of that. And so I have a really funny story to share with you, is because I actually followed you in the very beginning when I started my Instagram account, and I think you must have followed me back or something. But I remember when you first started your podcast, and the one night I was going to bed and I just looked at my Instagram and I saw I had a message from you. And I turned to my husband and I said, oh my gosh, he's going to ask me to be on the podcast. And so I was like, I'm not going to look. I'm just going to wait till tomorrow. And so I woke up in the morning and I looked and I was like so disappointed. You're just like, oh, cool picture, something like that. But it was so funny as I went through my messages, there was one from somebody else and it was the producer for BiggerPockets asking me to be on the BiggerPockets real estate show. So it was just like really funny that, I thought I was going to be on your show and I ended up being on the BiggerPockets one. And then from there, it just opportunity after opportunity with BiggerPockets just kind of spiraled from there. But I thought that was a really funny story.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
So I've been a big
so
fan of your podcast.
I love it. Well, now it comes full circle.
Yeah.
And now you are on Monumental. That's amazing. That's really funny. Well, I'm glad that worked out. The silver lining was BiggerPockets is such a great platform and a humongous platform, to be honest. It's one of the biggest podcasts and biggest platforms out there for investing and financial independence, and so that's amazing. And I love that you shared your journey. And it's wild to think because we all start with 0 followers, right? Like you all start with no social media. You have to start from something. Or start from nothing. And, in a matter of 2 years, you said that's incredible. To go from that to now you've created a lifestyle out of it. You're helping others, you're teaching others, you're having impact by sharing your story and sharing other people's story, hosting a great podcast. So good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you. And it's also, I love to share and I love to help everybody, but it's also so inspirational to me too, as seeing other people on social media, connecting with other people. And I learned so much from the people I've met online. It's amazing. And I know that if I hadn't created that social media, I probably wouldn't have the motivation that I do today. And that's the same with BiggerPockets. I didn't find them until about 2 years into my investing journey. And after I found them, I tripled my portfolio in a year and a half, just from talking with other people on the forums and learning different ways to get money, all the creative financing and everything like that. So just going out there and putting yourself out there and telling people what you want to do, what you're currently doing, and even what you need help with. There's huge advantages to that.
And speaking on that, I think tying that into what we were talking about right before we hopped on the podcast is you just got to spend a week in Maui with a phenomenal looking mastermind with a bunch of rock stars in the BiggerPockets community. And that, in a matter of a couple of years, you've scaled to that ability to be able to connect. And when you surround yourself with people like that in that level, then you're all better for it because you're sharing ideas, you're masterminding on how you can be a better person, a business. It's powerful. It's a compound effect when you put yourself in the right rooms with the right people.
Yeah, I was really nervous when I was asked to go, and I was like, these are like way bigger players than me, but you always want to put yourself into a room where, you're the smallest fish because you're going to be the one gaining the greatest knowledge.
That's amazing. So backing up a little bit, so making that jump from accounting to property management and then property management to investing, what was that like? Like, what was that? Was that scary? Was it confusing? What would talk us through that?
When I look back at my life, like I see all of these things where I'm like, wow, like that's a red flag right there that I could not sit in an office all day long. And all these little things. And it's really, when I look back on these little events and these things that have occurred, I realize that, real estate investing is perfect for me because it gives me flexibility to do what I want and, all of the great things about real estate. But it took me a long time to realize that. I think I started investing, it was since 2014. And I had worked for the other investor since 2013. And then right before that, I was just in college, and just the whole change in that. Like when I was working for this other investor, he gave me so many opportunities to learn stuff. I helped him build an insurance agency from the ground. I helped him purchase, do the acquisition of an auto dealership. And when we closed on that auto dealership, I was the one writing these big checks out. And to me at that time, I was like, wow, I've never even, written a check close to this amount or seen a check close to this amount. And I saw the power of how he was able to do that. And that was taking his residential apartment complexes, refinancing them, pulling the money out and using that to buy other businesses. So I think that I paid attention to what he was doing and realized that that's something I can do too. And that's where I approached his son and got him to partner with me. But yeah, it took me a little while to kind of put everything together. But once I was ready, I jumped right in. We ended up purchasing the first house that we looked at.
That's amazing. So I love that you brought up honestly, the aligning yourself with the right mentor and soaking up as much knowledge, asking as many questions, taking on as much responsibility, being of service to them as much as possible will just unlock so much knowledge. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And that was part of my journey too, is I was fortunate enough to put myself in the right rooms and found the right mentors. And I just soaked up as much as I could. And so I think for everybody listening, that's, if you want to get into real estate, if you want to get into whatever it is you want to get into, if you want to get into buying businesses, if you want to get into entrepreneurship, starting your own business, finding those around you that have done that and work for them or volunteer or, be of service to them. And it will come in compound ways for your knowledge and your learning.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to get paid. This was a paid position for me as a property manager. Even if you have a great full-time career now, you could be a leasing agent on Sundays and you'll get to see what apartments look like in your area. You'll get to meet people, potential renters, see what they like, they don't like. You'll get access to leasing documents. There's so many, you could do a maintenance tech or be a handyman for a small local property manager. There's so many ways to get paid too, where you don't even have to, volunteer time or do internships. And I feel like you're probably going to get more value from a paid one because you're getting paid. So there's a little bit of motivation for you to stick with it. And also the person they're getting value because you're doing a job that they actually need. And, the leasing agent and a maintenance handyman just for a small investor, it isn't a huge cost to that investor either.
Yeah. And I think proximity to the mentor is so valuable. If you can find roles where you're working directly with them or you're following along or you're shadowing or an apprenticeship model is very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So what was that like, that shift where you went from working for him in the property management side and helping him in all different sorts of projects to doing your first investment deal with his son and then eventually now doing it full time?
Yeah. So when I did it with his son, our first deal, there was really no change because it was I'm doing this property management all day long anyways. Why not do it for myself, I guess? So once I get into the groove of things, property management became pretty easy for me. And so I would buy another property and I would add it. I actually had 2 property management companies, one for his properties and one for mine. So they were separate and I ran both of them. And then last February, so in February of 2020, right before COVID, I gave up my properties to the property management company. And we got a great deal because we had this, between the two of us, we had a large amount of properties and we got a bulk rate. And we had interviewed the property management company for 2 months before actually signing with them. And it was really hard for me to give up that control. And these were my babies. Yeah. And give up these properties, especially the large apartment complexes, because I had really grown them from the ground up and just turned them over, renovated them and made them so much better than what they had been when I first started. And I was really proud of them. It was hard to give them over. And then once I did, it was this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And this feels great. I love this. And I got really relaxed though. I got into the mindset that I don't even have to worry about the apartments. Everything is fine. And then I started to realize I still need to keep my thumb on the pulse a little bit and make sure that things are getting done. And, the property management company isn't going to love the properties as much as I do or care for them as much as I do. So I still need to have a little oversight. And they do a fine job, but just not what I would do. So I
Yeah.
have gotten better I can't just completely let go of the reins. So that was definitely a big learning experience for me.
And fast forwarding to today, like you mentioned earlier, the starting social media, documenting your journey for 2+ years and seeing where that led. I mean, it's amazing what can happen in 2 years or less, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It seems like my Instagram was longer than 2 years. I actually just went and looked back at it the other day, and it's almost 2 years, I guess. Yeah.
that's amazing. And so using that platform, what as far as so first it was getting on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and then I'm sure that led to more opportunities, and then eventually walk us through how you became like how does one become host of the Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast?
This is a question that everyone is always curious about. And I don't even know for sure. But they had said, Brandon and David Green on the Real Estate Podcast had mentioned that they were going to start a new podcast, and they had an application on the Bigger Pockets website if anybody had an idea. They had no idea what the show was going to be about, and they were looking for people to host it and for an idea for the show. So I submitted an idea. I knew that it wasn't very good, but I at least wanted to throw my name in the hat. And my idea was to talk about building legacy and building wealth for your kids. How do you set your kids up for a great life? And so after submitting that, I got a call from the producer, and he said, it's a good idea, but that's like one show or one episode, not a whole show. So he said, but we would like to, throw your name in the hat for to be one of the hosts of it. And that's how he actually matched me with Felipe, and we went through the whole interview process. And then we found out couple months later that we had received it. I still remember it was my mom's birthday, and I missed the phone call because we were singing her happy birthday. But it was very exciting. And I definitely think the fact that I had my social media played a big part into that, because I had a following already. I might have had around maybe 8,000 to 10,000 followers. And so I could bring some new faces to Bigger Pockets, and, they would bring some to my account, obviously. But I don't think that I ever would have had a chance at being on the podcast or being a host of one of their podcasts without my social media, because they would never know about me.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. And I think that's a great testimonial to anybody out there that's thinking like, hey, I don't have time for social media.
Yeah.
That's just not me. It's like, well, anybody can do this. You just have to be intentional about it. You have to document your journey. You have to add value. You have to share knowledge. But if you do that, then people will love to follow you. And that community that you create of like-minded individuals is powerful. And it opens up a whole lot of new doors that would not be, or would be a whole lot harder to open were it not for the social media and the following and the community that you build.
Right. And that's such a good point, is to add value. So if you are going to, here's some advice for anyone that's going to be starting or maybe just starting out with their social media, Instagram, whatever, is when you do post, make sure it's valuable. Don't go with quantity over quality. Make sure that when you do a post that you are adding value to someone, or there is some point to the post. On my Instagram, I only have, I think, 195 posts and I think 32,000 followers. And if you look at some other people, they have, 3,000 posts and that many followers, and I've only had mine for 2 years and they've had theirs longer. It doesn't have to take you a ton of time. I've probably posted twice, maybe this month. I do a bunch in my stories, but that's just on the fly and doesn't take a lot of planning like a post but does. But just make sure that you're adding value when you do post. And the second thing is that I did that really helped me grow was that I didn't let anyone know about my Instagram account that I knew personally. I created this account separate,
Hmm.
and I had the account for almost a year before anybody I knew found my account. And it was actually my attorney that found my account first. And she's like, this is so cool. But I think
That's
that
funny.
just helped me because I'm afraid of being judged. I don't want to be criticized by, people I know. And so that really helped me be more open, especially like with numbers and with my finances and, what we were doing with that and buying properties. And so if that was something, if that's a fear holding you back is what people are going to think of you and judge you for, because yes, people will do that, then just create it and don't even tell anyone. And,
Yeah.
then maybe one day they'll find you when you have 50,000 followers
Yeah.
and you're a host of a podcast.
I love that. That's so true. I think people deal with that, just like
Yeah.
you did. I mean, that's common for people to feel like, hey, people are going to judge me. People are going to think weird of me. Why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And it gets in your head. But you're right. I think figure out ways to make it easier on yourself and feel like less of a commitment or less of a putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and the
It's just
more real you are and the more open you are, people are going to like you more and going to want to follow you more. So if you're not afraid of anybody judging you or criticizing you, you're going to be more yourself. You're going to be yourself on there and not be afraid. So you'll definitely get more value yourself, and you'll make better connections too with the people on Instagram or whatever social media platform you're using. TikTok.
yeah, TikTok. Yeah, we're trying to get into, or we're doing more TikTok
Yeah.
content. So I'm excited and a little nervous about that.
Yeah. I've done a couple when I went to the BiggerPockets headquarters a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago. We did a couple real TikTok things. But
nice. So as far as being able to, at this point, you have the podcast, you have your own real estate investing business. Are there any other businesses or venues or ventures that you're working on?
yeah, so this past September, I opened a wine and liquor store. I had actually purchased a 4-unit building and completely gutted it, rehabbed it, and then put a liquor store in the bottom unit. So this is my first retail business, I guess. So
Nice.
definitely very different, but we wanted it to be really hands-off and passive. I have it with my partner. I purchased the building and used my money for the rehab, and then he helped me with the rehab. And basically, he did the rehab, and I helped him a little. But then he also has a couple restaurant franchises. So I wanted his supervisor that oversees that for him help us with the liquor store. So that was a great value from him there. So he didn't put any money into the deal, but I gave him equity of the building and the business for his knowledge. And we're partners on other stuff and we work really well together. So it's a great fit. But definitely been a learning experience because I know nothing about wine and liquor and I still don't. But we are our direct store manager. Like, how do we even find a liquor store manager? It's not like that's a common job. You really have to know the liquor and the wine. So what we did was we went after people who bartenders who managed bars and managed the restaurant. And so we found a great manager right now who's doing a phenomenal job, but definitely a different area than real estate
Yeah.
investing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you mentioned partners, the partner on that deal, and then also partner when you got started. What is partnerships? What does that look like for you? And can you just speak a little bit more to like how that came about and how that's helped your business?
Yeah. So my first partner, since the guy that I worked for, my mentor, he always bought in cash. Like he would pull equity from other properties, buy it in cash. So that was just in my mind was that's the only way to buy an investment property. I had no idea you could actually go to a bank, put 20% down. I didn't know anything about this. So I knew that his son, who I was friends with, had a large amount of savings. And I asked him if he would be interested. And we talked about it. And he was very confident in me and trusted me. So we went and purchased the first deal with his cash. We actually structured the partnership so we were 50-50, but he was also getting a mortgage payment every month for the money he put into the deal. We did that for quite a while before we started using banks and refinancing out and paying him back. But we still have a couple properties together, and we'll probably buy a few more down the road. But my main partner, him and I are 50-50 on everything, except for the liquor store. Then we're 60-40 on that. But I've been very cautious with dealing with partners. I am very skeptical and scared. Yeah. And I actually just tried to do a partnership with somebody else that I didn't know that well or anything. And there was a couple things that scared me, and I actually backed out of it and didn't move forward. But my partner that I handle with now mostly, we knew each other for 2 years, and he had some rental properties himself, and we analyzed a lot of deals together, and we, would talk constantly, and that really helped us trust each other and get confident. And we're like so open with each other too, with our personal finances and what's going on with our own businesses. With his restaurant franchises, I can probably tell you more about what's happening with them than he can. So I think that's a big thing too, is if you are looking to partner with someone, make sure that you are ready to open up your life to them and that they will do the exact same thing to me. Not too long ago, I had someone, I think it was on a Zoom call I was doing, and the person asked, well, what if when you give this person your tax returns for them to look over when you're asking them to partner, what if they, steal your identity or take your social security number? And I said, if that thought is even in your mind, then you probably shouldn't be partnering with that person in the first place.
That's funny. Thank you for sharing that much. I appreciate that. I think that helps our Monumental listeners who, if they're thinking about a partnership in any sense or form, like a joint venture or just like an alignment on multiple deals or even just one deal, I think it's important to know your partner. And we always say it's almost like you're marrying somebody. You need to make sure you align your core values, your philosophy of investing, your philosophy of impact, whatever the business is. You need to make sure that, this person will likely think similar to the way you will think as far as how to run the business, and you're not completely on totally different pages, and that you can trust this person in times, in tough situations. I think that's really important because you don't want to find yourself in a bad partnership. And like you said, I mean, there's times where you go down that path with people and then ultimately you find out it's just not a good fit. I've had great partnerships. I've had mediocre partnerships, and I've had bad partnerships. So I definitely get that. So Ashley, as far as what you've learned along your journey, what is it that you are most passionate about as far as helping share with others or educate others on?
Yeah, obviously the Real Estate Rookie Podcast has given me a big platform to actually help people get started in real estate. Before BiggerPockets, before I was on social media, I was very lonely and I didn't have anybody to talk to about real estate. My first partner, he didn't want to know anything or do anything. He just wanted to invest his money and I take care of everything. Even today, he probably can't even tell you the address of one of our properties. That's funny. That was fine. I liked having the control, but I wanted someone, or tons of people that I could talk to about real estate investing. And then as I started to get traction, it became even more fun when I would tell somebody a little piece of advice or try and help them. And then they would come back to me and say, hey, I got my first deal. And that is just so awesome. And it's almost kind of selfish because I'm feeling good, but I hope they're feeling good too because they got their first deal. But my big thing, especially this year, is I don't want people approaching me. I want to reach them before they have to approach me. I want to find people who don't even know what real estate investing is, who don't even know that real estate investing is exactly what they need and the exact type of lifestyle they want. Yeah. So I want to have a voice out there. I want to, get out there as much as possible and try and educate people and show them like, this is actually a really great life. Yes, real estate investing isn't for everyone, but I feel like there's a large amount of people who don't even realize that this is an option for them or that it's so far out of their reach, they think they can't even go after it. And I want to change that and show them that it's possible.
That's monumental. I love that. That really is like, that's monumental impact, because if you can open people's eyes to a whole new realm of reality or possibility, that is a game changer, and you can literally help change the trajectory of people's lives. And I think that's so powerful. And then they ultimately live a better, happy, more fulfilled life. And then who knows how many people they pass that on to as well. So that's really powerful.
Yeah. I'll give you one example of like one of my favorite stories, I guess, of my sister. She, when she graduated college, she was 20, and she went to go get pre-approved for a mortgage, and we actually partnered on a deal together. She was a broke college student. She had no money. Mm-hmm. So because of BiggerPockets, the community, because of Instagram, we figured out a way to make this beneficial to us both. And she's has learned all about property management. So I actually gifted her the down payment. So she had enough money to close on a property. She bought a duplex and she rented out the upstairs, and she lived in the downstairs, and she taught herself how to I'd send her YouTube videos, and she would, learn how to do little updates and cosmetic things around the apartment herself. And that was just like the most awesome thing, is seeing my sister at such a young age already becoming a real estate investor. And, a couple of years ago, that was something neither one of us would have thought possible for her. And so that was really awesome to see. And, she's still living in there. She actually switched apartments now. So she's, updating the other one now and renting out the bottom, but she lives there for free. Her, tenants cover her living expenses. So it's been really cool to see that impact that has had on her life.
That's really cool. I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had that thought and conversations like that with close family, close friends. And they've said, hey, I want to get into real estate. And there's been conversations of, hey, these are the steps. And I think that is a lot of people in real estate, they're like, they're evangelists. Like, we're all just pumped about it. We're obsessed about it because it is such a powerful, life-changing tool to create wealth, to create income, to create lifestyle that you want. But I think it is like, that's one of the hardest parts is helping educate people and get people to ultimately not just educate, but take action, and take the right action, and take enough action to actually feel the benefit of owning cash flowing real estate.
Yeah. And there's always like the scary side too of like, ruining that family relationship because you're doing business together. And the way that I looked at it is that I wasn't bringing her onto a deal with me. This was her deal. This is her house. She's bringing me on to help her in whatever way I can. So I think that really helped the mindset, because, any time there was an obstacle that kind of ruffled the feathers in our relationship, ultimately it's her house. She's the decision maker. She can decide on that. And I think that definitely helped a lot, because this was my property and my name was on the mortgage. I would be like, no, this is the way it goes. And then her not maybe completely understanding the situation as a new investor like I did, could have caused some turmoil.
And what about as far as, ups and downs of being an entrepreneur and a real estate investor and a business owner? What have been some one or two mistakes that you've had along your way that you've learned quite a bit from?
I think, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is being a mom. And I have struggled with this as to where I draw the line as to what's too much work and what's, spending time with my kids. And I finally got into the mindset of, people always say to you, your kids are only young once. Okay, well, they're only 10 once. They're only 15 once. They're only 20 once. But it was really hard for me at first, and I was mom shamed a lot about it, because that I didn't choose the stay-at-home mom, and that I was working constantly. And I could see even my own mom, I could see that it really hurt her that I wasn't with my kids all the time, and that, I would be feeding them dinner and trying to work at the same time. And so it took me a while to get over that. And now that I don't care what anybody else thinks, and I'm okay with my decision to work a lot now, and I'm feeling the benefits and the impacts. I mean, my kids and I have traveled, even, with the gap of no traveling during COVID, we still have done, quite a few trips together and have spent a ton of time together. So I think having that mindset shift of, this is my life and this is my family, and getting to decide what is best is my choice. And that was to really focus heavy on my businesses, while they were young, so that now as they're getting older, we can go and do, whatever they want to an extent.
I love that. Living life on your own terms. And also you're ultimately the one that decides what's okay and what's right. Being able to put blinders on to what everybody else's opinion is.
Yeah.
It's a really important lesson to learn.
Because that can really hurt you in your business or your real estate investing if you let the opinions of others affect you. And I mean, the mom part of it had nothing to do with my business, but still that affected me, because I'd be like, well, this needs to be done for my business. Yeah. But what if my mom stops by and sees that I'm not spending time with my kids? So, and then that project, gets pushed off. And so it's just like it all comes intertwined. And that's why I like the idea of, what lifestyle do you want? What life do you want? And then build your businesses to work around that. Where I think at first it was the other way for me.
And to that point, I think one lesson that I learned that I think is really important to add on to that is also sometimes be wary of who you take advice from, or whose opinions you rely on, because ultimately it's what matters most is what you believe in and what your definition of a happy, fulfilled life is. And so figuring out that definition, like you said, like figure out your lifestyle that you want to live. Like, what is your goal as far as a lifestyle? And then back into that and say, hey, if somebody else is not living my lifestyle goal, then I don't necessarily need to take or listen to their advice.
Yep, I agree. Same thing. I think that, you do what you want to do, and don't let others impact you. It's the same with the social media thing, and it's your life. Build it how you want it, and you'll be amazed at once you get that mindset, the amazing things that you'll be able to do.
I love it. It's your life. Build it how you want it. You heard it here, Ashley.
Someone make an Instagram meme out of that.
Yes. Ashley, one last piece of advice for our monumental listeners.
Let's see. Okay, I guess I'd have to say, I'll take it towards the real estate investing side. So we'll go back to partners. So if you decide that you want to do a partnership with someone for real estate investing, definitely put together an operating agreement, and put in the operating agreement not what's happening now, but what's going to happen in the future too. So you may say, oh, Ashley is going to be the property manager, Joe is going to do maintenance, they split everything 50-50. Okay, well, what happens when one day you want to outsource the property management, or maybe you're just going to outsource the maintenance and not the leasing and the bookkeeping? So it's very important to lay it out and see what the future could look like. But also, if one of the partners were to pass away, what happens then? So a lot of times the spouse or the kids will inherit that person's interest into the company, and they will become your new partner. So my piece of advice is to get life insurance policies on each other. So if I were to pass away, the company would be the owner of the policy. So they're the ones the company is paying the premium every year. So it's a tax write-off. So if I passed away, my partner would be the beneficiary, and they would take that money and they would pay my husband for my shares, my interest in the company. And then my partner would have, 100% of the company. He'd control it, and my husband would be happy because he got a boatload of money. So that's my little piece of advice if you're thinking about doing partnerships, is look into life insurance and your operating agreement.
That's really interesting. That is a great Little nugget of advice. So thank you,
Yep.
Ashley. I appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, let's dive into our monumental questions. What
Okay.
does success mean to you?
Success means to me is that I am living a spontaneous life. So I always struggled with creating my why, and I figured out it's actually a word for me. I like, yes, my kids are my why, my husband, my family, but I felt like that was too easy and not motivating enough for me. So I came up with the word spontaneous, is that I want my family to be able to live a spontaneous life. So I feel as though I'm being successful if we can afford to do that, if we have the time to do that, and we have the freedom and flexibility to do that.
That's awesome. What about daily habits or morning rituals that you have?
Well, right now I have awful jet lag from Hawaii, so I have no morning ritual.
Nice.
I think I went to bed at 3 a.m. and got up at 6 a.m. So
Oh, geez.
nothing recently, but I'm actually not a great morning ritual person, but I do definitely drink a full glass of water every morning, and that really changes me. It makes a big difference. But other than that, I really don't have a morning routine. Actually, I guess one thing is I drive my kids to school every morning, and that's one thing I've been blessed to do. And when we actually put them into a private school this year for the first time, and there was no busing, so we had to drive them. And at first, I was like, oh gosh, like I have to drive them to school every day. This is the worst. And I heard a friend of mine say, I'm so lucky I get to drive my daughter to school every day. And I was like, he's like, I really enjoy that time we get together. And it was like a whole shift for me. Like I get to drive them to school every day.
Yeah.
So that would be part of my morning routine too.
I love that. Yeah, it's mindset shifts and how you see things.
Yeah.
Final question. Favorite book or book you're currently reading?
So I'm reading a book and listening to an Audible, but I'm reading Who Not How, and then I'm listening to the Audible Crushing It by Brian Murray. And then my favorite book that I would recommend to someone is Hug Your Haters by Jay Bayer, I think is pronounced his last name. And Hug Your Haters, it's like a customer service book, but I think it's great for anybody in real life. And it just like talks about if someone is criticizing you and hating on you, especially if you are going to start an Instagram account or something like that. And it just talks about how to kill them with kindness. But it gives like really cool examples. When I first read the book, I made tons of notes for the investor I was working for his auto dealerships. Like, you need to have your customer service reps read these. But yeah, I think that's a really great book, Hug Your Haters.
That's awesome. I haven't heard of that one, so I will add that to my list.
Yeah.
Ashley, phenomenal episode. I love all the value that you brought our monumental listeners. We got to touch on a lot of different things today. Where can our monumental listeners follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, so the first place is BiggerPockets, the Real Estate Rookie Podcast. We release an episode on Wednesdays where we interview rookie investors. And then we also have a Saturday show that's released called The Rookie Reply. And it's just a short, to the point question and answer episode where we pull a question from Facebook or Instagram. And my co-host Tony and I just talk about it quickly and get to the point. And then you can find me on Instagram at Wealth from Rentals.
I love it. Guys, follow Ashley on Instagram. Check out their podcast. Amazing value. Also, Instagram, she shares a lot of value there. So guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review Monumental. And then also, please share this podcast on whatever platform, social media, whatever it is that you enjoy. Please share this podcast episode. Tag Ashley. If it's on Instagram at Wealth from Rentals and me at Evan Holiday. And guys, with that, have a monumental day.